I'm going to show you how to go from soft to shredded in less than 8 weeks. I'll show you the exact things that I went through, but I'm not going to speak about calories or training in this video. If you're someone who has no idea what calories they need to be hitting, the macros they need to be aiming for within those calories, and training that you should be following based on your body composition right now, I've spent hours, literal hours on creating this for you. It's the body blueprint, it's completely free. All you need to do, tap in a couple of details like your age, your weight. You need a tape measure to measure certain body parts. Feed all that into it, and it will kick out based off of like my coaching philosophy and how I work. The calories that you need to be following, the macro split for your goals, and it'll give you an example of what training split I would recommend, and even an example training session to go and try out. Completely for free. I know coaches who would charge hundreds for this. It's literally all of their coaching into one, but I built this for you for free. So if you want a better idea around the numbers that you should be following and all of that, I'll drop this link in the comments so you can click on it, go and have a play with it, and I guarantee it will give you so much clarity. But the idea behind this video today is it goes a little bit deeper than the numbers, and it's just some of the things that I really focused on and took on board when I went from soft to shredded, as I showed you earlier. You need to have an endpoint. Right? You need an endpoint to put a rocket up your ass effectively. That's all it does, right? People fail fat loss or struggle with it because they don't stick to something long enough to see the results. And I think a really big part in that is because it's open-ended for a lot of people. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna lose weight, and that's it. It's like, okay, that's just boring, isn't it? The big thing last year for me was I was on holiday and my missus took this photo of me and I was like, fuck, I am out of shape, right? Subjective, yeah, you might think I'm lean there, you can maybe see a little bit of my abs, but I was out of shape, right? I do not want to look like that for my wedding, which is in a couple of months' time after the holiday. It was more how you feel, right? You want to have your arms, you know, squeezing against your shirt a little bit more. You want your waist to be nipped in a little bit. You want your trousers to look good. You want to have a bit of a triangle shape. So I was like, I need to sort this out. So that was my rocket up the proverbial ass, right? I had a start point as soon as I got back from the holiday. I was going to go into this deficit and really focus on fat loss. The end point was a couple of days before my wedding, before like my best man and etc. came over and festivities started, if you want to call it that. And I'll tell you what that does. It stops you letting things slide. Right? I don't know if you've tried fat loss before, but it gets to the weekend and you're like, oh yeah, I'll just have a takeaway, or I'll just go out for a few beers, and it turns into like 10 and the next day you're hanging out and you eat shit all weekend. Or maybe it's like, okay, I'll go to the gym because today was so busy with work. I'll go tomorrow, I'll wait till the weekend, whatever. And it never happens, you know. I definitely think having an endpoint that means something to you, that it's important, right? It just stops all that shit from happening. It stops you making these excuses, because that's all, they're just excuses. We just let things slide and we want to be comfortable, and fat loss is uncomfortable. So we have to, in that moment, have something that's like, no, stop fucking around. Go and do what you know you need to do. And then you can just avoid being one of these people. I see them all the time where they're like, oh, I've been dieting for the last 5-6 years, but I still look the exact same. And it's like, yeah, because every single weekend you completely fuck it up. You go thousands of calories out of your deficit. You can barely string a couple of days in the gym and a week together, never mind months on end. So it's kind of like, what do you expect? And I honestly think that is purely down to the fact that they do not have an end point. Start with the end in mind with your fat. And now the second thing that helped me tremendously, especially in the last 4 weeks of the deficit, so like 50% of it, I got to a point with my calories where I didn't want to bring them any lower, right? I was on 1800 calories. For a guy who is as active as me, training multiple times, there's only so much you can limit your food before it gets too miserable and it gets to that point where you cannot stick to it. And 1800 calories for me, it felt like that point. I could deal with my hunger to a certain point, but I wasn't going to allow that to really affect my training. I was like, I need to get this weight off quicker, but I don't want to drop calories. So what's the obvious thing to go and do? Move more, right? And I know the blanket prescription is 10,000 steps, and a lot of people think, yeah, I've hit 10,000 steps, it's good enough. And nah, like if you want to get quicker results, it would really be useful if you can just find ways to really push the boat out on your activity. I don't mean about like training harder or more. I think that's a bit separate to steps, right? Steps isn't really training. It's just something that we can do inside of our day-to-day. And everyone's different, but in the last 4 weeks of my diet, I bumped myself up to 20,000 steps a day. And I do have some flexibility with that job. Don't get me wrong. I could get out in the middle of the day for a couple of thousand here and there, but it meant that at the end of the day, 10, 11 p.m., I was out for a couple of hours getting the steps in. But it was only for a month, right? In my head, if this means that I'm gonna get almost twice the results in half of the time, and it is gonna get to a point where it will obviously end, hence having an end point, why not? You know, I've got this freedom, I've got this flexibility. I do not mind being a little bit tired the next day in order to, you know, squeeze these results in. And to put this into perspective for you, put this on the old ChatGPT just to get an idea. But for an 80 kilo guy, someone doing 5,000 steps a day, you're burning roughly an extra 100 or so calories. 20,000 steps is about 424 calories. If I've got, let's say, a 1,000 calorie deficit created through food, and then I've added on another 500 calories to that deficit through movement alone, it is going to make my results quicker by another 50%. It's like, why would you not want to do that? Within reason, you know, it wasn't taking over my life. I was a little bit more tired. I probably watched less TV. I didn't play as many games on my phone, but my work was still the priority. Everyone was taken care of. My relationship didn't fall apart before the marriage. I feel like I got in fantastic shape for the amount of time that I spent on this. So again, push the belt out on your steps. And this leads me to present day where I'm currently at. And it's what you do outside of your fat loss phases that matters a hell of a lot more than the fat loss itself. The amount of people you see who, after the fat loss is done, like, oh yeah, cool, that's me, and then just regain all of this body fat back pointlessly and go back to arguably like a worse point and worse state where they were before. And some people are cool with that, right? Fine. I'm in a position where I got to a point where I didn't like how my body looked, and I lost the body fat, and now I'm kind of post all of that. I mean, yeah, I've just been through like a really big performance phase with the ultra, and I managed to maintain a decent amount of my results anyway. But I'm in a position now where I'm like, okay, performance isn't really the goal, it's more aesthetics at the moment. But the main thing that's going to affect how I look in that photo shoot is the amount of muscle I build from now pretty much up until then. So that is why I've taken myself out of a deficit and I'm going into this, or I am in this lean bulking phase right now. And I think people just switch off. If it's not fat loss, it's like, okay, well, then it's nothing. It's either you're in a deficit or you're in this crazy surplus, not really training that hard with much purpose, or not really watching your food as much as you did. And you know, it slowly slides over a couple of years potentially. And then you find yourself in the same position. You haven't built much muscle. So you're effectively just going to diet down to a worse version of yourself. And I'm just think that's a bit mental, especially if you're my age, 35. Lads, we haven't got a lot of time to be playing around with in terms of building muscle. So I think outside of fat loss itself, if you're someone who has higher body fat percentage right now, this might not be super applicable for you, but the leaner you typically are, the more time you need to be spending across a year. You need to be focusing on muscle building and that performance side of things rather than perpetually being in a deficit and trying to lose weight. I don't think it's a very productive thing to be doing year long. And if you haven't tried out my body blueprint just yet, links down below. Honestly, it will give you so much clarity. And like I said, coaches charge hundreds for this, so take advantage of it whilst it's free.